everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I am Jeanne Gallagher, and I am here with the infamous, amazing Denise. How are you today, Denise?
Dun, dun, dun. I am awesome. How are you, Jean? I love your haircut, by the
People are
way.
going to notice it's been a while since we've talked, so
I know.
so,
We're just
so tell us
um
what's our subject for today?
okay. So over the weekend, I came across the book on my bookshelf, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I read it years ago and kind of couldn't remember what the agreements were and thought, oh, I should probably remember that. There's only four of them. So I
It's
went through
funny
the
you
book.
mentioned this because somebody had brought this up book. I have the book in my bookcase, and somebody had brought that up too. And I'm like, God, I read that, and it was a great book, but
What are the agreements again?
now I have to reread it again, right?
And it's great, and it's a quick read, hour or so in the afternoon. And as I read it, I was started to look at it from a different perspective. Imagine that, me looking at something from a different perspective. And so what I want to talk about today, and we'll talk about two today, and then we can talk about the other. We'll talk about two agreements today, and we can talk about the other two another time. So the four agreements for menopause, a new way to lead yourself back to you, only wiser. So so basically my thought process here was, during this menopause transition and literally from the time you're 35, 37 till the rest of your life, you're transitioning, right? I mean, which actually reminds us we're always transitioning in life, right? We're never, this is a snapshot. We're different every day. We're always evolving and growing and changing. And so with the four agreements, this made me think of something more powerful than this is a way of living your life. Yes, it is. And for personal freedom, I think that's really the message that Mr. Ruiz came up with. This was something for a path to personal freedom, right? And so in this menopause transition, we're looking for some freedom too, right? But it becomes something stronger, something fierce, like a blueprint for reclaiming your body, your mind, your spirit, your clarity, all in the middle of the chaos we call life transition. So
Chaos. Chaos
I do
transition.
what I do on a Sunday afternoon, right? Um, so it becomes more about surviving and truly becoming more, helping you to become the woman you are meant to be, tomorrow, next week, next year, because you're not the same person you were even a month ago, right? Again, always changing and evolving. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word, especially the promises that you make to yourself,
Mm.
because I think that's where we start to like the erosion in our life kind of begins, where we give our power away to everybody else. Um, we stop prioritizing our health, um, and try to figure out, is this something, this is just the way it's going to be, right? But if that's our thought process, then nothing's going to change. You're right. That's the way it's going to be for the rest of your life, right? Not
Mm.
because of lack of willpower or laziness, but because you're really trying to navigate a body that's different from what it used to be, right? And let's be honest, nobody tells you about what to expect. There's no handbook. There's no what to expect when in menopause.
Hmm. And prioritizing yourself is really important because it's not normal. It's not it's not normal. I guess normal is an okay way to put that because as a female, you quite often spend 20, 30 years taking care of others. And then as you work into this transitional stage of our lives, those habits are really ingrained. Even though you might not have anybody to take care of or nurture, it's those habits that if you're tired, you're doing whatever you need to do your family. You're not really integrating your personal stuff and during as your family is growing. Now that the family is gone, you don't think that those traits are there, but deep down they really are.
Yeah, and it becomes more about the checklist than anything. Like, I
Yeah.
got to get this done because that's what I've always gotten done. And realizing there's no need for the urgency that we put on ourselves. And I think it happens when these habits are so ingrained in us, we stop believing that we can actually change or do
Hmm.
something about what we're experiencing, right? We
Yeah.
stop trusting our own voice, our own inner intuition. Um, and as we're doing that, it's actually making our symptoms worse. Why? Because now we're stressed about it. Now we're sitting up, we're waking up anyway in the middle of the night, but now we're just adding more and more um, stress and challenge on top of things that the menopause transition is stressful enough, right? But we keep adding these things because we think this is what we're supposed to do. We've always been this person, the go-getter, the triathlon, mom, all of the things, right? And now, being as we're pulling this back to the phrase, being impeccable with your word means something different today than it meant when you were
Mm.
30 and raising kids and raising family, right? Impeccable to your word was you told your kids you were going to be there 3 o'clock and you were there. You told them that we were going to go to the park on Saturday after they clean up their room, right? These are the things that we did, and the PTA and all of the things. um so what does that being impeccable with your word mean today? So, some thoughts. Keeping commitments to yourself. You and I speak a lot about the commitment we have to movement and exercise, right? And we're in a phase kind of beyond this being impeccable with your word, where this is the one thing we know we are impeccable with our word about. It's a habit. It's a newer habit than we used to have back when we were 30 and 40, right? But it's a commitment to ourselves. And sometimes these commitments are things that nobody really sees. Like, for
Mm.
example, my morning coffee. Nobody sees me sitting in front of the window staring at, hopefully, as the trees start. I'm looking at the trees here. If anybody who's watching, I'm staring at my window. Right. I sit for 10 minutes and I have my coffee and I look outside. When it's warm, I sit outside. Nobody sees me do that, but it's something that I do for me because it makes me feel good.
Mm.
Right? So these are the things that you're saying to yourself, I matter. So something that you might uh, do now that is you being impeccable with your word. I just called out one of them. So sorry, you got to pick another one.
Well, oh gosh. Um, I think it's the expectations or promises that I may have made to myself internally without expressing them. And then we were just recording the podcast with Kym and talking about the ego, and that shows up a lot. And the negative self-talk that you can give yourself for not doing it the way you expected or the way that is expected, um, or just not perfect, right?
I'm glad you said it because I was going to say, or that perfectionism kind of pops on
Hmm.
in. Right. So by being impeccable with your word and doing the things that you want to do that makes sense for you, maybe it is going to bed early, even if the to-do list, you don't have all the checks, right? You can do some of it tomorrow. If you're exhausted, go to bed, right? These are the things. And this is how we build momentum when everything starts to kind of feel stuck. It's those little things that we do, those commitments that we keep to ourselves.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Jeanne Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend Denise Stegall. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows each show and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter, how does that apply to me, how do I change, what do I need to do, how do I even create a healthy living shopping list, make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach, and you can find her at healthylivinglist.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. My name is Jeanne Gallagher, and I'm really excited to have you all here. And if you're listening to us on a podcast platform and you'd like to see our happy faces, jump on over to YouTube, like and subscribe over there as well. And I'm excited today to introduce you all to Kym Coco. Kym, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Jeanne. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you and your listeners about making life better from the outside in, inside out, and having a great level of confidence as we do so.
That's great. And we're going to really get into that. And so before we do, give everybody a little bit of a background about a little bit of a idea about your background, and then we can just dive in.
I think a great launching point for that background starts last year when I decided to take on 100 new golf courses in honor of my late husband. It was a plan set in motion before he made his transition. In our wonderful marriage, we talked about meaningful ways to live life, exploring in love, exploring in passion. And it felt almost like this culmination of a lifetime of sports, 6 years studying sports kinesiology formally in school to get my master's, and then 20 years of yoga, energy medicine, active living, purposeful living in a way that brought me joy, healing, resilience, and really amplified all of the skills I had developed over time and gave me a really playful avenue to put them together.
Isn't it interesting that everything that you went through, your learnings and your experiences really helped you process and work through grief and things that happened to you during that process?
It's really true. I find what's great about the tools we start to garner through life, it's not like the college degree that once it's done, yeah, you get to hang the plaque on your wall and celebrate. It's, wow, there's a new level of refinement. Oh, wow, I learned this. Now I can tweak it and make it different and apply it here. And so,
Mhm.
even though challenges might still arise and emotions still arise, we have the capacity to face them with a clarity and a sense of trust and an ability to really rely on that inner wisdom and the support from those around us so that we can continue to thrive.
What I also hear from you too is not just the background that you had, but the attitude that you went into all of this from either, and you can tell me if this is accurate, from a self-care standpoint, always making sure that you are in a position to be okay. But there's an attitude that also has to be in place in order to plug in all of those skills that you had learned and put them into action, because I would think it would be easy to not forget them, but to not pull on what you have because everything can be so overwhelming.
Jeanne, you mentioned two really great things there. The first is self care. It's like the
Mhm.
oxygen mask that you have to put on yourself first before you step out and into the world and serving in any capacity. And understanding that awareness is a great gift. I think we often overlook that. So
Mm.
celebrating the awareness of, wow, I'm aware I'm taking care of myself and then choosing to do so in micro moments and then in bigger ways serves us over time. And then the second thing you said too, which is yes, the beginner's mind. I think the ability to step into experiences with a fresh lens, with this
Mm.
idea that I might not get it perfect right away. I might have to learn in this process. I might make a mistake. and then still showing up and taking the action and the willingness to continually grow, I think is almost the basic element of how we build confidence and then competence, which then feed back and forth to say, oh, yeah, I've got this. Yeah, I've got this.
That's interesting, confidence and competence, because I'm kind of going through that. And what steps in is the ego. And it's really difficult when you're north of a certain age to start something new. Everything and I'm embarking on a new thing and I notice and I'm trying to study and I'm trying to learn about it, but and then in a few weeks I'll be able to hopefully put some of those pictures in my head into practice. But I've noticed that my expectations are way incorrect. You expect that, well, it'll just work out well the first time, but then if it doesn't, it all goes to hell in a handbasket, right? And I noticed this too when I was recovering from my hip surgery for the second hip surgery. And the first hip surgery, I had super high expectations and it was hard to manage. And then the second time, I did have those high expectations, but I think I gave myself a little bit of grace, more grace than I did the first time, because that ego really shows up and says, you should be able to do this the first time. And if you can't, you're no good at this.
That voice can get loud too.
Oh, really loud.
Can I offer an idea that's recently actually came to me this morning as far as this team element of how our mind and brain function so that we can approach that ego with a healthy respect as part of the team, but we don't want it to have control all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the right and left brain, we often think of left brain logical, right brain emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And let's take a step back. We have in the left side this logical element. It's kind of the boss. It's the way we execute. It's our skills, our ability to meet a task and follow in an organized pattern linearly to get something done. And our mind can thankfully be able to process past and future to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have also in that left brain an emotional center. And that's often where that voice comes in because it sets the alarm bell off. It says, hey, wait, I don't know. That could be scary. The unknown is the unknown. And we want to keep you safe. We want to make sure you survive. And that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
We also have in that right side an emotional center, which is that free, playful, present, completely absorbed in the moment. That frisky, energetic ability to take in all of the senses and appreciate how we are part of the whole, which
Mm-hmm.
also is in the right brain, let's say, this ability to know we're part of maybe something bigger. However we defined that, that's different for all of us. But if you look out into the world, like the picture behind you, there's an immense amount of beauty and harmony in this universe in which we live.
Mm.
So if I looked at that as a team, all of these different elements are helping us. So when I thought of this in the sense of volleyball, although I played volleyball in high school, and let's say you get 3 touches on the side of the court. I think of that fourth character, that really broad connection to all that is, able to pass the ball beautifully. It sees the broader picture. It's able to assess the situation and bring the ball into play.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the setter, which is able to take this and loft the ball into the air. It's fun, it's frisky, it sets the foundation for what's to come. And then that logical, detail-oriented ability to navigate the skills we have, combine them to create a really great shot. They see the gap in the court on the other side of the net. They're able to maneuver their hand and score a point. And so then you think, okay, wait, where's that logical mind or the ego mind, that the careful, wanting to prevent injury, worried mind? Where did that fit into the play? Well, I think of that as like the team medic. It's there. It wants to let you know if something happens, we're here. Be careful, put on the right gear, take care of your injuries. If you have them already, tape them up. And yet you didn't get to play. We heard you. We took your considerations into mind, and we still played anyway. So it's helpful to say, yes, you're part of the team. I thank you for helping me navigate the world.
Mhm.
And yet you don't really get a voice a lot of the time, because if you do, then I get frozen or scared and I'm unable to act or use the skills I know I already have within me.
That's a really great analogy too. And I think that working through that, it's difficult to work it through things like that on your own. And having somebody to that's on the outside looking in and saying, "Oh, I've noticed this," or "Oh, this is one area that maybe can be tweaked," really is so important because for me anyways, what I imagine that I'm doing, I have a really terrible I've got a over 20-year yoga practice, right? And moving my body is very natural for me, but I have a really hard time imagining how my body's moving. And so when you have somebody on the outside saying, noticing these things that you might not see, and those little tiny pieces are so important for the full picture.
There's our coach in the analogy. It's nice
Mhm.
to have that outside person helping us out.
Yeah. And in this day and age, it is so normal to ask for help. 10 years ago, or maybe even less than that, you didn't ask for assistance through that process.
I think still, even today, that can be challenging. I think
Hmm.
that voice wants to say, we can do this. Why do we need somebody else? I'm less than, I'm not
Hmm.
good enough if I have to ask for that help. And that's part of the courage to show up and say, yeah, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to fail. I like the outside input. I don't know all the answers. And admitting that can be scary.
Hmm. Yeah. And the importance of starting something new and working through I love the words that you use, the confidence and the competence piece. There's this self accomplishment of all of these stages that's important to have a moment of reflection and realize, wait, it wasn't perfect, but it's better than it was before.
And celebrate our neuroplastic brains that are able to learn, to take what we already
Hmm.
know and layer in the new, so that as we build these different skills, maybe you're not starting from scratch, even though it feels like it sometimes.
Hmm.
It's really layering in the experiences and the hard skills and the soft skills, and we adapt. That's such a beautiful thing.
Mm. And this can be applied to whether you're doing something physical or you're going through life changes. All of that, this concept is truly applicable.
Completely. Yes.
Hmm.
The ability to have that beginner's mind, to start over. Sometimes it feels like you're drinking through a fire hose. That's often how I think of the analogy, because the information, the data, the new is coming at you so quickly. You think, I cannot possibly take it in. And yet we can. We take it into bite sized pieces. We delegate when we need to. We reprioritize. We restructure that mental landscape and maybe the physical world around us to make room for the new.
Hmm.
And then what's so great in that competence and confidence, I call it trust stamina. We're building the ability, just like you would after your hip surgery, to be able to stabilize the hip with all of the muscles, to be able to practice yoga, to hike, to weave in those activities you love again with this new apparatus. Then you go, okay, great. We are able to now build on this. We have the trust in our system, in our mind, in our body, and that just grows and grows. It builds momentum like a snowball.
Hmm. Yeah. And what was interesting, I've learned so much through this process. And thank goodness that my PT person is incredibly talented, but super picky. And she recognizes, I've worked with her for a while, and she recognizes my personality of I really want to do the big things and screw those small things. Who really needs to do that little stuff? I just want to do the big things. But you can't do the big things until you do the small things. So she's learned to hold me back and say, no, here's what you need. This is what you need to do right now. and in order to be able to accomplish those big things, because you have to build that foundation. And so I've taken that thought process, outside of maybe the physical piece, but it is everything. We need to build the smaller skills, no matter what they are, in a certain order, or to create that more solid foundation to be able to work on the larger things. And you can put that analogy into a business, or into anything that's happening, or into a physical accomplishment, whatever that happens to be.
Can I ask you a question?
You sure can.
Has that adjusted? Let me ask it this way. Has your understanding of layering the foundation first and those smaller activities to get to the bigger
Mhm.
affected how you view the pace at which you approach coming back or moving into those bigger elements?
It has. It has, because it's given me the acceptance of I might not be ready yet. So what happened is kind of interesting. I just started back at yoga. So it's been, surgery was December 31st. And I started, I at CrossFit, but CrossFit was more doing PT exercises and then letting certain things come in. And then last week I was able to integrate a yoga practice. And what happened for me, which was different than it ever has before, is that I categorize things into three areas: things I can do, things I can't do yet, and things I shouldn't do. And that helped remove the ego piece out, because the ego piece shows up a lot. And there's nothing I can do about it. But it helped that. But it also, it's helped in other areas outside of that too, to be able to categorize. If I can't do it today, it's not that I can never do it. It's just that I'm not ready to do it yet.
Yes. I really like that. I actually use the term often, ready to be ready. I'm getting
Mm,
ready to be ready. I'm getting ready to be ready. The next step. We want the whole
hmm
picture. I don't know if we'd like to admit otherwise. I like to live big. I like to live bold. Stressors included. If they come up, we have the capacity to handle it. And yet I'm getting ready to be ready. The small is just as valuable as the big. And that's shifting our perspective to appreciate that.
hmm And as you're working with clients through the coaching piece, how do you notice that? Or there's that one question. And then how has all of this, maybe hold that question for later. I've got a different question. I'm getting ahead of myself. So how have the loss of your husband and things that you've gone through, how has that evolved your practice, either your coaching practice or how you're taking on life, and how has that really impacted you?
Those are some great questions. Let's unpack that a little bit at a time.
Hmm
Let's start with the personal. I find that the awareness that we can have first, like we've talked about that moments ago, is really
hmm
essential. This idea of self awareness, to step back, to observe yourself with curiosity, another element of building
mm
confidence. If you can be curious about yourself in the good times, in the challenging times, curious about your skills, what they are they able to meet the challenges at hand? If we use the sports concept of flow, when you have a challenge in front of you that's too big for your skill set, it's anxiety inducing, it's overwhelming. And you can say, okay, now I know I can build some skills. I don't have them yet, but I'm building on them. I'm growing them. And it helps you assess, well, what skills do I need now? Because you might be in an entirely new situation, say caregiving in my case. I didn't have
hmm
a skill set for that. I don't have a nursing background. I could help my husband physiologically on a basic level, and yet we needed doctor's input, blood tests, a whole host of support members that would give us guidance, how to navigate that. I learned to be an advocate for him. I learned how to reprioritize my life, our life, and create new relationships with those in our already existing network and the new people we were encountering. So that maybe up-leveled a skill I had. So often you gave the example, learning something new, trying something new, being put in a situation where you don't necessarily have all of the skills yet, it's natural to feel overwhelmed. So
Hmm.
it was really a great reminder for me going through that with my husband, even say going afterward, after his transition, to what does my life look like? The disassembly of just the whole 13 years we were together. We knew it was coming. You can think, oh, I'm mentally going to be prepared for this. And yet you still have to unravel all of your daily patterns. We have so
Hmm.
many memorized patterns that help us feel familiar in the world. That helps us feel safe. That ego mind wants us to be safe. So it was a great reminder to say it's okay to have times of disassembly, deconstruction. Let
Mm.
that happen. The space to rebuild is so valuable. It's equally important. It's fun to rush into the new, and yet many times you cannot put something new in a space that is already occupied.
Mm.
That was really a great reminder for me to say, value the space. I like a lot of space. I knew that about myself, and yet I got to apply it in new ways.
Mm, that's really interesting. And you said curious, and that curiosity piece, it by staying curious, which is really hard to do, by the way, but it changes it can change your attitude, and it can change your relationship with yourself as well, because I would think that that curiosity would create less self what's the word I'm looking for? Not self-assessment, but that negative thought process on yourself.
Like a criticism or a judgment.
That's the word I'm thank you.
Yeah,
Self-criticism, exactly right. Is that true, do you think?
completely.
Hmm.
I'd look at my nieces and nephews, and they're 4, 6, 7, and 9. And they're so curious about the world and they
Hmm.
repeat patterns as they are learning. That's wonderful to observe because it reminds us of how we got to where we are. Why would we expect otherwise? I mean, I laugh saying that because we've had success in the past. We would like that to be quick again. So the curiosity element, looking at things as a playground, as a new
Hmm.
experiment to be involved in, helps say, okay, I don't have to know it all right now. I don't have to get it right the first time. Let's keep trying.
And as adults, we are so serious. We lose that silliness or that curiosity piece because we're supposed to be adults, whatever the heck that means. And we're not attacking things with that simple mind of, oh wow, oh look at this. I wonder what this is all about.
And I like how you talk about using the outside to shift the inside.
Hmm.
Because if you watch outside, you can watch birds at play, you can watch the fish jumping, you can watch the elements of the world around us. They play a lot. It's a great reminder for us to keep a lighthearted attitude.
And to slow down enough to see it.
Yes.
That's also the challenge in this busy world is to take those moments of quietness or just stepping outside if you can access it, that's not encumbered by traffic and noise, and there's some essence of nature within there that will, and it is difficult to slow down. And I have that challenge too, especially when I'm hiking, because I want to go versus stopping and, oh, look at that pretty flower, oh, listen to that bird, was that a deer that ran across here?
You're speaking to the power of the pause.
Mm.
We pause between words, we pause between sentences. That's how our mind can process what we just heard. Pausing in our life gives us the shift in perspective.
Hmm.
What can I see differently? It is really fun to go fast, especially when things are in alignment and we
Mm.
have those skills and the pieces flowing together. That's a wonderful thing. And yet, the ability to build in the pause, to reflect, to create on purpose, to be present in those experiences
Mhm.
It's a skill we start to build. It's paying attention to say that pause is valuable. It's equally as valuable as the action.
I like what you said, the skill that we need to build, because it's a skill that's lost. And taking our time and learning how to recognize, oh, I might have missed this. Let's go back.
Yes. What's really interesting is I work with golfers many
Hmm.
times, and pivot is my acronym because many times we have to shift in the game, just as we do in life. And pivot is an acronym that helps us go through these different steps to shift, to make the next decision with intentionality. And again, that happens all the time in life. We have those opportunities, but the first letter in that is P. Pause. That's
Mm.
how we start to notice what's going on and make the best decision, being able to assess our surroundings to say, yeah, let's go with what I already know. Let's try something different. Let's aim for X, Y, or Z. Let's include a new coach, a support team, whatever that is. But the pause is what really allows us to make a clear minded, open hearted assessment.
Mm. And so you work with golfers, but what does your coaching world look like?
Oftentimes it's one on one. I do a
Hmm.
monthly workshop called Brilliant Becoming because I believe we are brilliant and we are constantly evolving. What's interesting, I'm going to tell you a brief story about this. So I had a recent stressor happen. I won't go into detail. And I shared it in my newsletter, and someone said, there was no trigger warning for this. And I thought, it's interesting. Life doesn't come with trigger warnings.
Hmm.
Stressors show up even with the best skills. So it's important to say, how do I check in regularly? How am I assessing the skills I have or building new skills to say, stress happens? How do I respond? How can I bring balance back to my system? Because the nervous system gets ramped up. The sympathetic goes to help us fight or flee, keep us safe. And yet, we want the ability to come back to that balanced, calm, clear state quickly. We want to recover quickly. That ego mind you talked about, that wants to
Hmm.
go on loop, on repeat when something stressful happens because it wants to tie it to the past. It wants to prevent it from the future,
Mm.
and it wants to circle until there's an answer. Well, guess what? We don't always get answers to why something happened or a million other questions. Why is the first one that comes to mind? But let's say, okay, now, instead of ruminating about the past or worrying about the future, what can I do now? And that requires us to let go, let a stressful experience move through our system. It's done its job. And I have the resilience now to move forward. If something hits me unexpectedly or expectedly, I have some really great tools. So my Brilliant Becoming course, just the monthly workshops help us develop the mental and emotional tools to navigate stress, to release beliefs that might keep us stuck in that stressful space and build a resilience to come from that clear, authentic, confident space as we move
Mm.
forward. Because we don't want to shrink from our lives. We want to move into them in those big ways still. Even if it means small steps, we still want to move forward.
Mm.
And then with the golfers, it is one on one. It's so interesting in the sport of golf because the ball doesn't move. It's so much easier to react on a court or on a soccer field. Your body instinctively can move. So with the golf swing, it's so fascinating because the mind can just really want to get in the way. So it's nice to be able to specialize and craft a plan for each individual golfer to say, where are the hangups? What's going on? That many of them have really great skills and they know something up here is blocking the natural strong swing, that coordination. So how do
Mhm.
we dissect that? How do we remove those roadblocks so that your body can do what it already knows how to do?
And that all comes back to what we were talking about earlier, is having somebody from the outside looking in and seeing and noticing those intricacies that might not be recognized without that exterior input.
Completely. I still work with coaches. I work with a golf coach on my physical skills. Hard skills are important. No matter what aim we're going for, having the tangible, visible skills. And then I still work with others because I want to keep my mind sharp. I want to
Mm.
see, okay, poke holes in my belief system. I still do work regularly on my own psyche. And yet it's great to say, let's team up because we all have blind spots.
Mm. Tell me about your books.
Which one do you want to start with?
Sure, your choice.
Okay, The Miracle on the Mountainside, since we talked a little bit about caregiving for Steve, he was a phenomenal human being. Before I met him, he had been in a very intense motorcycle crash. Driving up Highway 70, cruising a beautiful sunny summer day, and he hit shale. The bike went sliding and he tried to jump the guardrail, and that shallow slope that he thought was there moments ago was now a cliff. And he tumbled to a stop, thought he was going to die on the side of the mountain that day, and had a miracle rescue.
Wow.
In that miracle rescue, it was a second chance at life. He went through 28 reconstructive surgeries. It took him 3 years in a hospital bed and then 3 more just to relearn how to walk. So you talk about stripping yourself of all of the identities that you had before and building the mental fortitude to overcome pain, isolation, a sense of loneliness, doubt. Am I going to be capable of doing this again?
Mm-hmm.
What relationships are going to survive on the other side of this experience? And wow, honestly saying, I'm scared to live again. I don't want to go back to what was, and I don't know what's coming. So the skills he learned in those 6 years really changed his life. It gave him a second chance at life, not just to be alive, but to want to live.
Mm.
So this book goes through all of these short stories through the accident, looking back at his life through a lens of understanding, and then really important lessons he learned of what gave him that vibrancy to really live again, shift his whole career trajectory, helping people with pain, showing how our mind and emotions and body are all connected so that they could really get to living again just like he did.
Mm.
So that's a
Amazing.
really great book.
Amazing. Yeah. And what the 6 years, that's, I can't wrap my head around what it takes to work through all of those challenges over such a long period of time.
Yes. And I also like this book because the lessons that are woven throughout the text remind us we don't have to go through that extensive trauma to learn the lessons. The invitation is here at any moment. And given the skill level he had to control pain, to focus his mind on what mattered, to create on purpose, he's still human. We are all still human. So I'm thinking about a story at the end where he had a great level of patience, and yet someone kept pushing his buttons and he thought, I can shake it off. Kept pushing the buttons. I can shake it off. Keep pushing my buttons. Okay, now I'm going to smash a bike against a tree because now I'm so upset. So we are human. We have these moments. So this reminder of the beautiful capacity for us to live fully really starts with us being able to experience all of these emotions and not have to numb them or control them in any way. We get to utilize them, learn from them, celebrate them, and then we still get to use our mind to focus on the ones that give us the most joy and satisfaction as we move through life.
Amazing. Amazing. And so one of your others.
I would say The Miracle on the Mountainside is the story form of how it just makes sense goes into practice. So think of It Just Makes Sense as the how-to guide. How do I start to focus my mind? How do I understand which beliefs are underneath the surface that are the operating system through which I'm living? Dissect what's working, dissect what's not. Let's learn how to take out those that aren't working. It teaches how to meditate, how to start to include pauses in our life on purpose so that we have a better perspective. And How, in this real physical social world, do we communicate our wants and needs so that we can navigate this experience, really enjoying the harmony in our relationships and blending this diversity because you have strengths, I have weaknesses, you have weaknesses. Let's come together as a team so we can really maximize this juicy experience.
Mm. Wow. There's so much. We could do a whole conversation just around that. There's so much to unpack. And then you have the flexible golfer as well, correct?
I do. The flexible golfer is how I integrated yoga into my golf game. That's what helped me prepare my body for golf in a really practical way.
Hmm.
There are a lot of small muscle groups that need attention to warm up. How to create resilience in the body because it's a powerful unidirectional swing. How do I balance myself out afterward? How do I recover? How do I focus that mind on the golf course? Because yoga does incorporate mind and body, I wanted to say, this is how I started to excel when I played in the game, and here are ways you can too.
Amazing. And now you also have a golf program coming up, correct?
Yes, the focused golfer. So we have the flexible golfer, which addresses a lot more of the physical elements, how to
Hmm.
integrate yoga, breathing to stay balanced on the course as well as after. The focused golfer really dives into the mental and emotional element. How do we fine tune the inner world so that your outer game can be better? Golf is fun. Golf is more fun when we play well. So, how can we add more of those elements into your game so it's not such a grind out there? Let's keep it playful and also harness the skills you already have.
Mm. Now, if somebody says, "Gee, I think I'd like to work with Kym," or what would be a trigger to say, "I maybe I should work with Kym"?
I'll give you a great example. I was watching the PGA tournament this weekend, and one of the players talked about being triggered by a stressor. Was
Mm.
someone in the gallery. Noises, voices, that's something in our external environment that causes an emotional response. We can't always
Mhm.
control the trigger. And yet, as he walked down the fairway, he was almost in tears. He could sense his heart rate rising, his breath going faster, feeling a sense of getting sweaty and out of control. It doesn't have to be playing golf to have this happen. It's, wow, it's something my partner's doing. I'm having this challenge at work and I find myself unable to control the response I have because the response is in our purview. If
Mhm.
it gets stuck in a loop and you feel like you're out of control or you feel like the replay tape is overriding your ability to perform in whatever capacity that is, whether it's a presentation, it is on a golf course, it is in your relationships where you can be calm and happy in your joyful self. If you notice those loops, if you notice that out of control nature, that's what I help people with so that they can come
Mm.
back to a calm, centered space, regardless of what triggers them, and they have more autonomy in how they move forward.
Well, what a great analogy to put it all into perspective. And how do people get in touch with you?
The best way to find me is at my website, swagtail.com. You can find the programs up there. You can check out a bunch of different resources. I have written several articles over the past 7 or 8 years that address the mental, emotional, and physical. And there
Mhm.
are videos that link to my YouTube channel. But Swagtail is the hub. That's the way to find out more and start the learning process.
Wow, this is fantastic. What a great conversation, Kym. I really appreciate your insight and the work that you're doing. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. I enjoyed it immensely.
Well, Jeanne, thank you so much for having me. This has been a great pleasure. This is such a topic that resonates with me and I'm passionate about it. I know this is something I want to continue to learn for myself over time. And I know we all have that capacity within us to pause, to prepare, to take the next best move, ready to be ready as we maneuver through our lives and make it the most satisfying experience for each of us.
Thank you so much, Kym. Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show is sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, It's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me, and if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.